everybody? Welcome to the Unscripted podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Wilson, and I'm joined as always, by my esteemed co-host, Dexter J. Tucker.
What's good, fam? How y'all feel?
And this is the podcast where we have unscripted conversations with millennials about relationships and dating. And one thing I want to say, it feels good to be back. Dexter, how are you doing? How are things in your world?
One, it feels good to be back. It's good to be back. Been gone for a minute, but everything's good in my world. Everything's good in my world. Like I was saying, we were getting ready to record. Like I've been finding myself, doing my professional clapback with a whole bunch of people when it comes to work. But my favorite word I've been using is caveat. When I tell you I love that word caveat, like it's like the perfect moment I hit. I'm like, oh, but the caveat to that is this, and it just shut the whole conversation down. It's just, man, if y'all have not been using the word caveat, use it. It will get your point across every time.
No, it's funny. As we get older, we gotta find different ways to still get our fade in without losing our job. Listen, we grown now. We can't be in here fighting. We'll end up on YouTube or TikTok or something. So we have to find very eloquent ways of getting them with a little cut here and there. So I'm glad to hear things are going well. If you're new here, welcome back. Welcome for the first time. This is the podcast where we do have unscripted conversations about relationships and dating. If you're a long-time listener, you're probably like, yo, what happened? Like you were there and then you weren't. Like things were popping, things were going. We were having great conversations. We were healing. We were learning. We were on this journey towards love together, and then things just stopped. And if you've been on my social media page, on my Instagram, you found out that I did go through a divorce. So I did want to take time to stop, pause, get myself together, and then continue on the journey of walking alongside you guys as we try to figure out this thing called love. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned in a post, I'm like, yo, I'm not even immune to the twists and turns that life throws at us, especially in our relationships. And one of the things that I wanted to do was really demonstrate and kind of be authentic and be one of the leaders in doing the things I've been preaching. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes we can't just talk a good game. We actually have to walk it out and live it. And boy, did I live it. I'm continuing to heal. I'm continuing to grow, but I remain hopeful. Like I still believe love is out there. Like I'm still a hopeless romantic. I'm not going to go Kevin Samuels and start saying how relationships are terrible and have all these crazy expectations on people. No, I understand that life happens. Yeah. The main reason I started this podcast was because I knew from the jump that love is going to be unscripted. There are going to be things that we can't plan out, can't predict, and this is where we're at. One of the things I will say, Dexter, that I've learned is that even though things may not always go well, relationships may end, change is going to be consistent. Mm-hmm. And it's never about the change that happens, it's how you respond to the change. Yeah. And so today I want us listen, we're going into a new season. We almost kind of straight skipped fall and went straight to winter here in Nashville. I don't know about y'all, where y'all at. It went from being 95 and warm to 31 and needing to cut the heat on. But one of the things we know that is ever constant is change. Listen, gas prices have continued to go up and down depending on the day. Food prices have continued to go up and down as the days progress. Listen, if you are in the renting market, if you're in the housing market, we're seeing that thing fluctuate and change on a daily basis. People are losing out on opportunities on houses because interest rates keep going up, things of that nature. Listen, even in our own personal lives, we just came out of a pandemic. Now people are dealing with changes in how do we get back to normal life? We're outside now. How do we do this thing called change? And one thing we continuously say on this podcast is not really about the change that happens, but it's how you respond to the change. So Dexter, in your point of view, why do you think it's so difficult for people to adapt to change when it happens?
The thing with change, and like I've discovered this like in my time as well, is like the thing about change is the hardest part is being able to admit that you need to, or that you actually need to adapt. Because the thing that happens, and I'm 100% guilty of it, is like when change happens, right? Like when gas prices went up, right? So when gas prices went up, like it's like, oh, like it's hitting my pockets, like it's affecting me. And I'm a victim in this because I've been victimized by this change that I have to now adapt to. But it's like, but what do I do? Do I stop going to work? Do I stop going to get groceries? Do I stop doing any of the things I need to do in order to survive? Or do I stop the fact, do I allow myself to get out of the place of where I'm feeling like I'm a victim and realize, you know what, I need to be able to adapt instead. And so the biggest thing is like, not with wanting to change or needing to change or adapting to change is realizing that I have to give up my right to be right. And if I give up my right to be right and realize that, okay, now I'm right, but I don't need the situation itself to prove that I'm right. I just need to adapt to the situation so that way I can keep moving forward. Even though it's going to hurt doing it, even though I may not even like moving forward with what's going on in front of me, I have to move forward in order to be the best version of myself that I'm working towards right now. Because if I just sit in this moment right now and I allow this situation to control my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my environment, my work environment, and all the people around me that love me, I will stay stuck in this situation. I will be a victim, but I won't be the person that I know I can be and want to be. I'll just be stuck in the same situation.
So I'm curious, when you get to that point where there's a change that you need to make and it's an uncomfortable change, where do you feel it at in your body?
You feel it everywhere. Like, I know for me, like I'll feel it in the pit of my stomach. I'll feel it like in my chest. I'll feel it in my hands. Like I'll start to get nervous. Like I'll start to perspire, but I'll feel it everywhere. And it's like the most uncomfortable feeling ever. Because you've been in this specific place for the longest time and you've been comfortable. You know, you've even in situations where things weren't the best, you know, for yourself or the people around you, you've kind of learned how to traverse, you know, the difficulty of being in that situation, and you've kind of become comfortable with it. It's like you've become comfortable with the chaos, and when you get comfortable with that chaos, you just start to move through it, and then it's like, oh, I actually need to change now, and like the reality of what you're actually going through hits you like a ton of bricks, and it's like, well, you know what, I need to do something now. Like I can't. It gets to the point where you literally cannot stay where you're at, and you have to keep moving forward. It's kind of like when you have a butterfly and they're in the chrysalis and they're trying to change. Like they literally get uncomfortable inside the cocoon that they're in, and you have to move and burst forward and get out of where you're at, so that way you can fly off and move forward where you need to go to. And that's literally what it feels like. It feels like you feel it all over in your body. Your body actually physically reacts to it. But you realize at that moment, like you literally, like I said, you cannot stay where you're at, because if you stay where you're at, you're going to get stuck.
Yeah. The first place I often feel change, like when I need to make a change, I feel it in my chest first.
Mm-hmm.
And then like right here in the middle of my forehead. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I got a nerve, a vein or something. But when it's a change that I also know I need to make, but it's uncomfortable making, I feel it in those two places. And I've learned to kind of listen to my body when it says stuff. Yeah. Because I don't think people realize that your body is always telling you things so that it can keep you safe and protect you. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that we tend to do in relationship to change is we fight it. Like we don't let it happen. Mm. Like we are so quick to push back on change, especially in relationships, because when those feels get attached, think about it, when you get married, finances, resources, all this stuff gets connected and combined, it may be difficult to change. even if you're in a relationship, trying to go to that next healthy level is going to require a different level of communication. It's going to need a different level of authenticity. It's going to need a different level of intimacy. But that doesn't always feel good to do. And I think what I would love for people to start doing, and I'm trying to do a lot more of this too, is be in tune with what my body's telling me in regards to change. Like, what is it saying? Because a lot of our automatic like push opposition to change is because we are not in control of what our body is doing. And over time, I've had to learn, like, yes, I need to change, but also I don't have to have a knee-jerk response in that moment. Change doesn't have to happen immediately, but you do have to, like you said, be willing to accept change. And so as we like continue to change, we also have to, like you said, admit the fact that change does need to happen. But what happens when we feel like the change that we are being led to or being led through was not something that we brought about? Like, the change that I'm going through is now because someone else made a decision. And I may not have agreed to the decision. They may have decided to cheat. They may have decided to not be honest with money. They may have decided that they don't want to communicate in the way that is necessary for a relationship. And now change is happening because of someone else. How do we accept the fact that, okay, change does need to happen, but I also feel some type of way because I'm not the one who brought about this situation?
That's the best way I can, because I've been there. And I had this thought the other day, and I shared it with my wife, and it was, if I always focus on what somebody else doesn't do, if I always focus on what they didn't do, what they should have done, what they could have done, if I focus only on that and I don't move forward, I literally strangle the gift of grace. And so what brought it about was, like, I was thinking about that specifically, especially like how the current status of a lot of relationships are, with like we see it on social media. Like, a lot of people are getting divorced, and it's almost like on a daily basis you see it. And I looked at them like, man, what happened? And you hear the same thing. It's irreconcilable differences and all of these things. I'm like, man, like, it's the same thing. But I realized that when you're hit with the change like that, you're literally at a crossroads. And the first thing you need to do is, like, feel what you're feeling. Feel it. Like, okay, I feel, be like, you know what? I'm validating what I feel. I know what I've done. I know what I've committed to. I know the vows I've made. We agreed to date. We agreed to be engaged. We agreed to do all these things together. I did this. I supported your dreams. I supported your goals. I helped put you through school. Whatever it was, you were there, and you realize what you've done in all of those things. Like, but recognize that, 100% recognize that, and give yourself kudos for what you've done. Because a lot of times we get stuck in this false sense of humility that we feel like, oh, well, I didn't do much. Yes, you did. You did a lot. So congratulate yourself on what you've done. But my favorite word, the caveat to that is, you got to realize, like, okay, I know that all the things that I've done, but if I stay right here and I focus on what I've done, I can also start focusing on all the things that they haven't done. But also realize that even at the end of the day, even in marriage, dating, relationships, even in being engaged to someone, regardless of all the good you may do, it does not mean that the other person is going to do good as well. It doesn't mean that. It just means that you've done well. You've served your purpose. You've committed. You've done all that you know how to do. And because they haven't done it, you cannot allow that to affect who you are. Because if it affects who you are, it can be the smallest thing, and it can be literally a seed. And if you don't kill it at the root, what starts to happen, that thing starts to grow and fester, and then everybody that's attached to you starts to feel the effect of what you're choosing to stay in. And so, like I said, like, give yourself kudos for what you've done. But also in doing that and moving forward and making that choice to realize what you've done is a great thing. Because loving well is a skill. And that's a skill that you've built on, especially in relationships. When you've done well and you loved well and you've done all those things, give yourself that grace to be like, you know what, I've done all these things and I've done well and I love them as best I could. I've used every avenue and resource I've done to try to make this what it can be. But at this juncture, I have to move forward and I have to change for the sake of me. Because if I don't, even in this, you're doing two things. You're not giving yourself grace and you're not giving that person enough grace to move forward. Because if you've loved them well, then that person, whoever you're going through this change with, will realize, hey, I have this moment in time where I was given the love I needed. And even sometimes, even the love I did deserve, I've received all of that from this person. And that moment can literally be a teaching moment for them. And you've given them the grace to grow from that moment. So that way, whoever they come in contact with, they've grown from either the bad decision that they've made with you. So that way they can move forward and they're not living a life in strife and living a life in bondage or any of those things, because they've been given the grace that you first given yourself to move forward.
And that's tough. That's tough because that's almost like being the bigger man, being the bigger woman,
Right.
and extending that grace. And to someone who feels like that, like, hey, the change isn't because I wanted to change, I was forced to change. And I'm gonna say this as nicely as I can. It's like, so what? Okay, you're in this position. Listen, life is not fair. Life is balanced. I'm gonna say this again. Life is not fair, but life is balanced. If it were fair, then everybody would get the exact same thing in every relationship, and we don't. If you've been in a long-term relationship, if you've been married at any given point, you understand that things are not always fair. Things are not always split right down the middle. Things are not always even. The hope is that it can be equitable, which means that everyone gets what they need in the proper proportion. Not everyone gets the exact same thing at every given time, at any given time. Life is not fair, it's balanced. The very fact that you're in that position in the relationship, that broken relationship, the hardship you're in is the counter action of things you've already been doing. This is the part people don't like. Whatever happens in the relationship it's very much a result of a combination of what someone else did and what you did. Both of you are involved. Both of you have to take responsibility. And when we look at change as only being one-sided, they're making me go through this, then you kind of almost try to give yourself an out and not take accountability for the role you play. The only thing we can really control in any relationship is our side in it. We can't make nobody do anything, but we are 100% control of how we respond and how we move forward in things. I still remember after talking with my therapist for a while and helping me get through the divorce, one of the most important questions that he asked me was, okay, now what? He was like, okay, now what? And essentially is he was saying what happened was, it was what it was, but what does the rest of your life look like going forward? And I think so many times people are spending so much time looking back at what is making them change versus seeing what could be the potential positive aspects of change that are moving forward. Why do you think so many people, Dexter, get caught looking backwards when change is presented to them rather than looking forward?
It's a tough spot to be in, because it's almost a feeling like being stuck in mud. It's like you're trying to go forward, but it's like you feel like you're taking two steps back at the same time. It's like, well, it's like you feel like as if you have so much to look forward to as far as the person you're going to become and the work you're going to put into it. And then it's like you get a memory pops in your head. It's like, oh, but this happened, and you feel like you're taking 2 and 3 and 4 steps back. And that position you're in, it's a tough spot. And that's probably one of the worst spots you can be in as you're trying to grow and change from this situation. But the one thing you have to do is realize that what happened happened. Like, you gotta take it from the Lion King. You really do. You gotta put the past behind you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's the and it's the truth. It's like, man, that thing preached to me. Like, there is literally nothing I can do. I can't do anything about it at all because it already happened. And all I can do is hold myself responsible for me and how I deal with what's going on. And also at the same time realize, like, when those memories pop in your head, because they will, those thoughts and those memories and those good moments, those bad moments, what caused the change, what caused the hurt, what caused the disappointment, it's going to pop in your head. It is. But what you have to do is realize, you know what? It happened. And realize and tell yourself one thing that helped me when I went through heartache, when I was dating, one thing that helped me was like, you know what? It happened, but it didn't happen to me. And the reason it didn't happen to me is because I made the decision to allow myself to realize I can only allow it to happen to me if I so choose.
It didn't happen. Say that again.
It happened, but it didn't happen to me.
Ooh, that's good. That's a clear distinction. I love that. It happened, but it didn't happen to me. And here's another thing, Dexter. People delay their healing. They delay their progress when you continue to look back. When you continue to drag your feet and not move forward with the necessary discomfort that naturally comes with change. Man, when I was growing up, and I used to work with my grandfather during the summers, and he used to restore old burnt down houses. So what happens a lot of times when a house burns down, a lot of the sheetrock melts. And when the fire department comes, they spray the house, but it's all wet. And a lot of time that sheetrock is now almost like cemented to the floor. And when I would go with him in the summer, I would have like my little scraper thing. And my job was to scrape the drywall off of the kitchen floor. And of course, me being young, sometimes I'd be like, man, I don't want this job. I want to do the sledgehammer. I want to knock down walls, but I'm over here doing this. And so I would be sitting there piddling through the floor, barely even like putting any muscle into it. And my grandfather one day walked over to me. He was like, my middle name is Ryan. He was like, Ryan, you can either allow this to take 15 minutes or 50 minutes. Either way, it's on you. And that's so crucial to our healing, because guess what? I think so many times we delay our own healing by dragging our feet, by not going ahead and going to therapy when we know that we're emotionally unloosed. Mm-hmm. We don't reach out to our support system. We'd rather just do it all of ourselves. We don't want the internet to know. We don't want people in our city to know that we done broke up. So I'm just going to hide out. You're delaying your own healing. You're delaying your own progress. Even not being willing to voice that you had a breakup and hiding. That's one of those things that stops your progress. It can take 15 minutes, as my grandfather would say, or take 50. Healing here's one thing that I've learned as a therapist. Healing doesn't have to take years and years. It doesn't. All my therapist friends, if you're listening, y'all know the saying that I'm about to say. You got to do the work. Yep. And when you do the work, that's when progress happens. That's when healing happens. And there's always a point in therapy where you just start really hitting your stride. It's because you're willing to break down the wall, be vulnerable, take accountability for whatever you need to do, and take responsibility for your own healing. When you do that, it doesn't have to take 2, 3, 4, 5 years to heal from a breakup that happened 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. I want y'all to be healed. But one thing that we cannot do is keep looking back in that mirror. If we keep looking back, like you said, it's going to be like stuck in the mud. And if you've ever seen somebody that got a car stuck in the mud, they get frustrated real easy. There's always a bunch of curse words happening. It's not a pleasant time because you're just spinning. You're using energy. You're using time. that you do. Let's not even get stuck on time. We don't know how long we have on this planet. We really don't. So would you rather spend the rest of your life with the opportunity of being happy, being whole, working towards wholeness, having positive experiences, meeting new people? Like, do you want that? Or do you want to be stuck in the past, almost in like a time capsule of looking at what was and reminiscing over how things used to be?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, like, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't. You don't have to be stuck. You don't have to be in this healing process longer than necessary. I don't know if y'all seen anyone who's had a cast. You're only supposed to have a cast on for so long. But if you have it on too long, your skin gets irritated, it starts to peel, you can get an infection, and you're in the process too long. And that's what's happening. Okay, here we go.
There we go.
People are spending too long in their healing process and they're continuing to get new infections. They're harboring resentment, which comes as a result of not addressing the hurt and pain and holding it in and not giving it an outlet. So Dexter, here we go. People who are stuck in that healing process for longer than they need to. What encouragement would you give someone to be able to get out of that rut of almost kind of like self-pity, that victimhood mentality, just being in a dilapidated and a sorrowful place? Like, what encouragement would you give someone to try to like get them out of that and get started moving so they don't have to be in this healing loop forever?
It just hit me while you were talking, and I'm gonna try to make it make sense as I say it. One thing of encouragement I would give you, because I had to do this for myself, is this. One thing I would say is, if you're healing, stop using the person that hurt you as a mirror to how you feel. Don't stop looking at them and what they're doing and try to allow that to determine how you should feel. So if that person that hurt you is doing the work, if they're doing the work and you're looking at them grow and develop and do all these things, what happens is we use what they're doing as a mirror to how we should feel, because we think they should feel how we're feeling, not realizing you are two completely different people. And the only person you're responsible for is you. And they're going to do it. And as my granny would say, they're going to do whatever they want to do. And it honestly, it has nothing to do with you, what they're doing. And so one of the best things I can say is, with that mirror, break it. Break that mirror and realize, you know what? I can't use what they're doing to affect how I'm feeling, because I have to feel what I feel. They're not committed to you. You're no longer their responsibility. They're not tied to you in any way. So whatever you're feeling by yourself, and they're off living their life. So the best thing you can do for you is break the mirror you're looking into and realize that, you know what? The only mirror I need to look in is the one I'm looking at for me. And realize that you owe it to yourself to move forward, because everyone else around you is moving forward and you're the only one stuck behind.
Ooh. So, go ahead, finish up.
So give yourself enough grace and be fair enough to yourself, and also be tough enough with yourself to realize, you know what? I'm the only one that's stuck around me. And the best thing I can do is slowly but surely come out this mud, but realize that if I take too much time, I'm going to sink. And I have to move forward, and I have to do it now, and realize that every dream, every desire, every goal I have is dependent upon me moving forward.
Listen, that is some powerful encouragement. Like that's the emotional wall that everyone has to get over at some point. Yeah. Is stop comparing to that image. It may not even be a person, but that image in the mirror that we keep looking at, that is the barometer of how we're feeling. Like, we got to break that. And as we transition into our Flip the Script segment, which is a segment of the show where our guest or me or Dexter will give a simple tool or strategy on how to overcome a particular challenge that we discuss in the episode. So right now, I'm going to go ahead. Dexter gave you the emotional piece. I'm going to give you a step-by-step process. And I personally use this to be able to get back to where I am, doing the podcast, doing what I love, talking about relationships, even though my marriage had failed. And here's the process that you can do. You've heard me talk about it before if you've been a listener. It's real relationship goals. So the first step is rediscover yourself. Step 2, go on a healing journey. Step 3, start investing in yourself. Step 4, start encouraging yourself. Be your own source of encouragement. And then 5, find a way to nourish your process and your journey. If you're able to do those 5 things, you'll be not only in a better relationship with the person you may be in a relationship with, but with yourself, because you can only be as good as you can be. The relationship is only going to be as healthy as you are. And y'all will hear me talk about those much more as we continue on in this journey. And speaking of change, yo, Dexter, we have the Love Unscripted HD back up and running. We're going to have multiple videos. Like, you already get the podcast, but we're going to start doing reaction videos. I'm going to start doing how-to and some more relationship education for the channel. I'm going to just put some videos out so you guys can get some real practical tools from a therapist. Also, Dexter, you got anything that you're going to start doing? Anything in your realm? Anything new?
So, hate to sound old, but I found myself on TikTok. So, so what I'm actually going to start doing a lot of short stories, poetic short stories on TikTok. I'm also going to post them on the Instagram page for Love on My Sleeve, and just kind of revamp it, and just show like more videos of short stories, words of encouragement, things of that sort. But the real thing I'm really excited about is posting the short stories, just from stories I've written and new stories that I'm working on right now. So you guys can kind of just see the creative side of who I am and how I see love and how it translates poetically.
Hey, so where they find? You said Love on My. Is it a Love on My Sleeve?
It's gonna be Love on My Sleeve on Instagram and Love on My Sleeve on TikTok.
All right, so follow Dexter on those platforms. Also, head on to iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher Podcast, iHeartRadio. Comment, rate, subscribe. If you're in podcast land, go ahead and head on over to YouTube to Love Unscripted HD, where you can see the full episode, see the full video for this show. Yo, I've really enjoyed this. I'm glad to be back. I'm excited. Yes. I'm ready to have so many more conversations. And y'all already know we're going to have some dope guests coming in the future. Listen, this journey has not ended. You just hit a speed bump. But guess what? A speed bump does not stop your journey onto your destiny. So listen, we may not have all the answers, but we will have the conversation. We'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Y'all.